Shadow of doubt, Reese Calloway rolled his shoulders, trying to work out the knot of tension that had taken up permanent residence between his shoulder blades. 3 months into his xenobiological research assignment on Meridian 9, and he still couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right about his newest neighbors. The orbital research facility orbited a gas giant in the Cygnus system, housing scientists from a dozen worlds. Most kept to themselves, focused on their specialties. But the Lamidian sisters who had arrived last month, they were different. Reese watched from his workstation as Zara and Kira moved through the common area, their movements fluid and graceful. Their purple skin caught the artificial light, refracting it slightly as though tiny crystals were embedded just beneath the surface. Beautiful, yes, but unsettling in their otherness. "You're staring again," Dr. Elias Chen said, sliding into the seat beside him with a steaming cup of synthetic coffee. Reese quickly looked down at his data tablet. "Just observing. It's my job, remember? Your job is studying Cygnus flora adaptations, not ogling the new arrivals," Elias replied with a smirk. "Though I'll admit they're fascinating. The Lamidians rarely leave their home system." "That's what bothers me," Reese muttered. "Why are they here? Their credentials say they're atmospheric scientists, but I've barely seen them in the lab. They're always whispering to each other, and they stop whenever anyone approaches." Elias sighed. "Not everyone who behaves differently is plotting something nefarious. Maybe they're just private. Or maybe they find us as strange as we find them." But Reese couldn't shake his suspicions, especially about Zara, the younger sister. While Kira was reserved and formal in the few interactions they'd had, Zara sometimes watched him with those luminous silver eyes that seemed to see right through him. What was she looking for? That night, as he tried to sleep, Reese heard soft movements in the quarters adjacent to the sisters' quarters. The station's walls were thin, and sound carried in unexpected ways through the ventilation system. Whispers in a language his translator couldn't catch. The occasional musical laugh that, despite himself, he found oddly mesmerizing. After a week of disturbed sleep and growing paranoia, Reese made a decision. The next evening, he made a show of yawning dramatically in the mess hall, complaining about exhaustion. He noticed Zara watching him, her head tilted slightly in that curious way she had. "Human physiology requires significant rest periods," she said, her voice carrying a slight crystalline resonance. "Perhaps you should retire early, researcher Calloway." It was the perfect opening. "You're right," he agreed, offering a tired smile. "I think I'll turn in now." In his quarters, Reese dimmed the lights, but didn't go to bed. Instead, he positioned himself near the thin wall that separated his living space from theirs. A small audio enhancer borrowed from the communications lab in hand. He felt a twinge of guilt at the invasion of privacy, but security concerns trumped etiquette. If they were up to something that could endanger the station. An hour passed. Then, too, Reese was beginning to think his plan had failed when he heard the sisters enter their quarters. He quickly settled onto his couch, the audio enhancer tucked discreetly against the wall, and closed his eyes, regulating his breathing to mimic sleep in case they somehow had a way of monitoring him too. As the soft voices of the Lumidian sisters filtered through, Reese fought to keep his breathing steady. Whatever secrets they were hiding, he was about to discover them for better or worse. Beneath the veil, the sisters' voices came through the enhancer with surprising clarity. Reese held his breath, straining to hear their conversation. His translator struggled momentarily with their native dialect before adjusting. Don't understand why you won't tell the council," Zara was saying, her voice tinged with frustration. "We've been here long enough to make our assessment." "Because I'm not certain yet," Kira replied, her tone sharper, more authoritative. "The preliminary readings are promising, but we need more time." Reese tensed. "Readings? Assessment?" His suspicions seemed justified. "It's not just about the research," Zara said, her voice dropping lower. "I can't sleep, Kira. The dreams are getting worse. Last night, I saw our home crystal spires shattering again." A long silence followed. When Kira spoke again, her voice had softened considerably. "I miss home too, little star. But we have a duty." "Do you think they'll ever accept us?" Zara asked, vulnerability clear in her voice. "The humans, especially, they look at us like we're dangerous." Reese felt an unexpected twinge of guilt. "That researcher, Calloway, he watches me constantly. I think he suspects something. Kira made a dismissive sound. Humans are naturally suspicious of difference. Remember what Mother taught us. Their species is young. Their unity fragile. They've only been among the stars for a few generations. But some seem kind, Zara insisted. When I dropped my samples yesterday, Dr. Chen helped me gather them without hesitation. One act doesn't erase millennia of evolutionary programming, Kira replied. Remember, if our research proves viable, it could help not just our people, but theirs too. Focus on that, not on making friends. There was the sound of movement, then Zara's voice, closer now. I just get so lonely sometimes. We Lamidians aren't meant to be isolated from our community. My light dims a little more each day, Kira said softly. Reese heard what sounded like a gentle embrace. Focus on your inner light. Remember the luminescence ritual. What followed was something Reese hadn't expected, a soft, harmonious humming that seemed to vibrate through the wall. It was hauntingly beautiful, rising and falling in patterns that made his skin tingle. As the sisters sang together, he realized with a start that the wall separating them had begun to glow faintly, illuminated by what must be their natural bioluminescence. The ritual continued for several minutes before fading away. In the silence that followed, Zara spoke again, her voice stronger. Thank you, sister. I feel more centered now. Good, we should rest. Tomorrow we'll check the atmospheric samples from the lower quadrant. As the conversation shifted to technical details about their research legitimate scientific work, from what Reese could gather, he felt ashamed. He'd been expecting to uncover some nefarious plot, but instead had intruded on an intensely private moment between two beings far from home. Struggling with isolation just as any human might, his suspicions seemed petty now. Whatever research the Lumidians were conducting appeared to be exactly what they claimed atmospheric science. Their secretiveness wasn't sinister. It was protective, a shield against the very prejudice Reese himself had been exhibiting. As he drifted toward genuine sleep, Reese found himself haunted by Zara's words about loneliness, about her light dimming. Tomorrow, he decided, he would make an effort to be more welcoming. Perhaps he could offer to show her the xenobotanical gardens he'd been cultivating, a small gesture of goodwill. What he couldn't explain was why, of all the things he'd overheard. It was the vulnerability in Zara's voice that lingered in his mind as he fell asleep. Fractured light? You want a what? Elias nearly choked on his synthetic coffee. Show Zara the xenobotanical garden, Reese repeated, keeping his voice casual as they sat in the station's mess hall. Some of the specimens might be relevant to her atmospheric research. Elias studied him with narrowed eyes. Yesterday you were convinced they were spies or saboteurs, and today you're giving private tours. Reese shrugged, uncomfortable under his friend's scrutiny. I might have ... overreacted. They're scientists like us. Well, here's your chance, Elias nodded, toward the entrance where the Lumidian sisters had just appeared. Gathering his courage, Reese approached them. Up close, the crystalline quality of their purple skin was even more apparent, catching the light in mesmerizing patterns. Good morning, he said, directing his words to both sisters, but finding his gaze drawn to Zara. I was wondering if you might be interested in seeing our xenobotanical garden. Some of the specimens have unique atmospheric exchange properties that might complement your research. Kira regarded him coolly, but Zara's silver eyes widened with interest. That's very kind, Researcher Calloway, Zara said. I would be delighted too. We have a full schedule today, Kira interrupted, placing a protective hand on her sister's arm. Perhaps another time, Reese nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. Of course. The invitation stands whenever you're free. As he turned to leave, Zara called after him. Perhaps tomorrow morning, before the primary shift. I tend to rise early.
How?
Before Kira could object, Reese smiled. 0600 hours at the garden entrance, then? Zara nodded, ignoring her sister's disapproving glance. The next morning, Reese found himself nervously checking the garden's ambient conditions for the third time. He'd arrived ridiculously early, driven by an eagerness he wasn't ready to examine too closely. At precisely 0600, Zara appeared at the entrance, her purple skin seeming to glow subtly in the garden's specialized lighting. You came, Reese said, instantly regretting the obviousness of the statement. I said I would, she replied, her silver eyes taking in the lush vegetation. It's beautiful. We have nothing like this on Lumidas. Our plant life is crystalline in structure, not cellular like yours. They walked among the specimens. Reese explained his research while Zara listened intently, asking insightful questions that revealed a broader scientific knowledge than he'd expected. May I? She asked, reaching toward a flowering vine, but stopping short of touching it. Of course. He watched as she gently stroked a petal with a slender finger. It's so soft, she marveled. On our world, even organic matter forms crystalline structures due to the mineral composition of our atmosphere. Texture is ... different. Their conversation flowed easily, and Reese found himself captivated not just by her alien beauty, but by her sharp mind and genuine curiosity. When they reached the section containing bioluminescent flora, Zara's excitement was palpable. These remind me of home, she said softly, watching the plants emit gentle pulses of blue light. Almost unconsciously, her skin began to shimmer in response, creating a subtle light show that left Reese breathless. Sorry, she said, noticing his stare and immediately dimming her bioluminescence. An involuntary response. It's how we communicate with similar life forms on Lumides. It's incredible, Reese said honestly. Please don't apologize for something so beautiful. Their eyes met, and for a moment, something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of shared wonder, perhaps, or something deeper. The moment was shattered by the garden door sliding open. Station Director Harlow stood there, her stern gaze moving from Reese to Zara. Researcher Calloway. I don't recall authorizing a collaboration between xenobiology and our Lumidian guests. Her tone made it clear this wasn't a friendly inquiry. It's my fault, Director, Zara said quickly. I expressed interest in the garden, and researcher Calloway was kind enough to accommodate me. I see, Harlow replied, clearly not mollified. In the future, all cross-disciplinary activities should be documented and approved. Security protocols. After she left, an uncomfortable silence fell between them. I've created trouble for you, Zara said quietly. I apologize. Reese shook his head. Harlow's always been paranoid about compartmentalization. Don't worry about it. But as they parted ways, Reese couldn't shake the feeling that the director's interruption hadn't been coincidental. The warmth of their connection had been replaced by a chill of uncertainty and the unsettling awareness that whatever was growing between them would face obstacles far more complex than mere cultural differences. Resonance 2 weeks had passed since the garden incident, and Reese had managed to see Zara almost daily, despite Director Harlow's increased scrutiny. They'd established a routine early mornings in the garden, sharing knowledge and, gradually, personal stories. These stolen moments had become the brightest part of Reese's days on the station. You never explained what brought you to xenobiology, Zara said as they sat among the bioluminescent plants, their gentle glow complementing the subtle shimmer of her purple skin. Reese smiled, watching how the light played across her features. My grandfather was on the first contact team with the Aladarians. He used to tell me stories about discovering plants that could communicate through chemical signals. I was hooked from age 7. On Lumides, our career paths are often determined by our crystal resonance patterns, Zara explained. Kira and I both resonated with environmental frequencies, hence our atmospheric science focus. But you'd rather be studying something else? Reese asked, noting a wistfulness in her voice. Zara hesitated. I'm fascinated by interspecies communication. How different beings find ways to connect despite having entirely different biological systems. Her silver eyes met his. Like us. The air between them seemed to charge with unspoken feelings. Reese found himself leaning closer, drawn by something he couldn't name. The station alarm shattered the moment, its harsh blare accompanied by flashing red lights. Attention all personnel, the automated system announced. Environmental breach detected in Sector 7. Containment protocols initiated. Reese jumped to his feet. That's near the main atmospheric processing hub where Kira is working today, Zara finished, her face paling to a lighter shade of purple. Without another word, they both raced from the garden. The corridor to Sector 7 was already filling with emergency response teams. Director Harlow stood at the sealed bulkhead, consulting with Chief Engineer Tavik. "What happened?" Reese demanded as they approached. Harlow turned, her expression grim. "Unknown gas leak in the atmospheric testing lab. 3 researchers trapped inside, including your sister," she added, looking at Zara. "The containment field is holding," Tavik explained, "but the gas is corroding the internal systems. We can't get in, and they can't get out. The emergency respirators will only last another hour at most." "Let me see the chemical composition," Zara demanded, pushing past the security officer to look at the monitor. Her eyes widened. "This is similar to a compound found in Lemidus's upper atmosphere. I know how to neutralize it." "With what equipment?" Harlow asked skeptically. "Some of the plants in the Xenobotanical Garden," Reese interjected, understanding immediately. "The Cygnus filtration vine. Its cellular structure absorbs and neutralizes toxic gases." "It would need to be processed correctly," Zara added. "I can modify one of our atmospheric samplers to create a dispersion mechanism." Harlow looked between them, clearly reluctant to trust this untested approach but running out of options. "Do it quickly." What followed was a frantic race against time. In the lab, Reese carefully extracted essential compounds from the filtration vine, while Zara modified her equipment with impressive precision. "I didn't know you had engineering skills," Reese remarked, watching her fingers move deftly across the delicate circuitry. "Lemidians are taught to be adaptable," she replied without looking up. "When you live in a crystalline city that requires regular reconfiguration due to atmospheric changes, you learn to improvise." As they worked, Reese noticed her hands trembling slightly. "We'll save her," he promised softly. Zara paused, meeting his gaze with unexpected intensity. "No, because I trust you, Reese. Perhaps more than I should." The moment passed quickly as they returned to their work. But something had shifted between them, deepening of connection that transcended their biological differences. When they finally reached the sealed lab with their makeshift neutralizer, the situation had deteriorated. Through the reinforced window, they could see Kira and 2 human researchers huddled in breathing masks, surrounded by a yellowish haze that was visibly corroding the metal fixtures. "The dispersal needs to be precisely controlled," Zara explained, as Tavik helped them connect their device to the ventilation system. "Too much, and it could trigger a crystallization reaction with unpredictable results." "You'll have to go in and monitor it," Harlow said grimly. "Our sensors are already compromised." "I'll do it," Reese volunteered immediately. "No," Zara countered. "My physiology is more resistant to these compounds. It has to be me." Their eyes met, a silent communication passing between them. Before anyone could stop her, Zara had sealed herself into the airlock with the device. Cosmic harmony, the aftermath of the Sector 7 incident, transformed life aboard Meridian 9. Director Harlow, impressed by their life-saving collaboration, had reluctantly approved an official cross-disciplinary research initiative between Reese's xenobiology team and the Lemidian sisters. Even Kira, who had maintained a protective distance, now regarded Reese with something approaching respect. But the most profound change was between Reese and Zara. Their connection had deepened into something neither of them, names for something that existed in the spaces between their words. In shared glances across the lab and the way their hands would occasionally brush as they worked together. One evening, as they calibrated equipment in the now-repaired atmospheric lab, Kira made an announcement that caught them both by surprise. "I've been summoned back to Lumides for consultation," she said, her tone carefully neutral. "The Council is interested in our preliminary findings about the atmospheric composition of Cygnus 4. "When do we leave?" Zara asked, setting down her instruments. "We don't," Kira replied. "You're to remain and continue our research. I'll return in approximately 2 Earth months." After Kira left them alone, new awareness settled between Reese and Zaratha, recognition of opportunity, of time, without watchful eyes. "Would you like to see something?" Zara asked that night, leading him not to the garden or the lab, but to the observation dome at the station's apex. The dome offered an unobstructed view of the gas giant Cygnus 4 and its complex ring system. Bathing them in soft multicolored light, But it wasn't the planetary view that took Reese's breath away, it was Zara, as she slowly began to glow. The bioluminescence began at her core and spread outward through her purple skin, creating patterns of light that pulsed and shifted like living constellations. In the darkened dome, she became a universe unto herself. "This is the full luminescence," she explained softly. "What you glimpsed before was just an echo. This is how we truly express ourselves, our emotions, our essence." "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," Reese whispered, unable to look away. "On Lamides, sharing one's luminescence with another is intimate. It's how we connect most deeply." Her silver eyes held uncertainty and hope in equal measure. "Among my people, this would be considered a declaration." Reese stepped closer, understanding the gift she was offering. What would be the response if the declaration were welcomed? "Typically, a resonance touch," she said, her voice barely audible. "But I don't know if human physiology." He gently took her hand, placing it over his heart. "Try." Her touch sent a warm vibration through him, as though every cell in his body had begun to hum in harmony with hers. It wasn't uncomfortable, rather. It felt like discovering a sense he never knew he possessed. "I feel you," he breathed in wonder. "How is that possible?" "All living things vibrate at certain frequencies," Zara explained, her glow intensifying. "Lamidians can attune to those frequencies, harmonize with them. It seems you and I resonate particularly well." The space between them disappeared as Reese drew her closer. Their lips met in a kiss that bridged worlds, her skin cool and slightly crystalline against his. The vibrations between them building into something that felt like music without sound. When they finally separated, Zara's bioluminescence had shifted to include warmer tones that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. "I never expected this," she confessed, her fingers tracing the contours of his face as if memorizing them. "When we were sent here, I was prepared for scientific discovery, not personal revelation. Is this forbidden?" Reese asked, suddenly concerned about the council she had mentioned, about Kira's reaction upon her return. Zara's expression grew contemplative. "Not forbidden, but unprecedented. There have been diplomatic relations between our peoples, but never intimate ones." Her light dimmed slightly. "There would be complications." "There always are," he replied, thinking of the stares they already received, of Director Harlow's thinly veiled disapproval of their growing closeness. "But I think some things are worth the complexity."
Aye.
In the weeks that followed, they explored the uncharted territory between their species, the differences in perception, in physical experience, in how they processed emotions. Zara taught him about Lamidian culture, about their crystalline cities that sang in the wind,
Ow!
about their collective consciousness that still honored individual choice. In turn, he shared Earth's diverse cultures, its tumultuous history, its art and music and literature. At night, in the privacy of his quarters, or hers, they discovered the surprising compatibilities of their bodies. How his touch could stimulate her bioluminescence into cascades of color. How her resonance vibrations could create sensations he had never imagined possible. Their intimacy transcended physical differences, becoming something uniquely their own. The night before Kira's scheduled return, they stood again in the observation dome, watching as a meteor shower streaked across the gas giant's rings. "What happens now?" Reese asked, his arm around her waist, feeling the gentle pulse of her light against his side. "I don't know," Zara admitted. "Kira will have instructions from the council. My research assignment has a finite duration." "So does mine," he reminded her. "But assignments change. Careers adjust." She turned to face him, her expression serious. "Are you suggesting one of us should abandon our world?" "I'm suggesting we create something new," he replied. "Something that doesn't require abandonment, but bridge building. The kind of interspecies collaboration that hasn't been attempted before." The light patterns across her skin shifted into complex geometries that he had learned to recognize as deep contemplation. "It wouldn't be easy," she said finally. "There would be resistance from my people, from yours." "Most worthwhile things aren't easy," Reese said, taking her hands in his. "But think of what we could learn from each other, what our peoples could learn. You and I were already proof that connection across difference isn't just possible, It's transformative. Around them, the meteor shower intensified, lighting up the dome with momentary flashes that complemented Zara's inner glow. "When I first arrived on this station," she said softly, "I felt my light dimming from loneliness. I never imagined I would find someone who could help it shine brighter than ever." She leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his in a traditional Lumidian gesture of commitment. "Whatever comes next, we face it together as scientists, as explorers of new frontiers," his partners Reese agreed, feeling the resonance between them strengthen, a harmony that seemed to extend beyond their bodies and into the star-filled space around them, a promise of connection that, like light itself, could traverse the vast distances between worlds. As they stood together, bathed in the combined glow of distant stars, meteor trails, and Zara's luminescence, Reese understood that they had discovered something far more significant than either of their research projects. A bond that, like the universe itself, contained infinite possibilities for growth and discovery. Tomorrow would bring complications, explanations, perhaps even confrontations. But tonight, in this perfect moment of cosmic harmony, nothing existed but the light they created together, a new constellation taking shape in the darkness between worlds.